Well, we're going to get into some music at the end of this podcast, everyone, because Rolling Stone released their top 500 songs. And whenever Rolling Stone magazine does a list of anything, it is inevitably going to cause some controversy. Some people being like, no way. So we'll get all to that. But the breaking news of the last 24 to 48 hours, depending on when you hear this, is that comedian Norm Macdonald passed away after a near decades-long battle with cancer. We don't know what type of cancer. Nobody knew he had cancer. He kept it very close to the chest. Only a handful of people apparently knew about it. So it really did shock everybody. It was a pretty devastating thing to find out. And what a great comedian. And Brido, you have one of the best stories ever that Tom Segura has already been pumping out there. So anyone listening to this has probably already heard the story now. I think the clip's going viral on Instagram.
I got 1,000 follows in the past day. Because Tom,
awesome. You deserve it.
Tom told everybody to look for my story about him. So I dropped everything I was doing and reposted it. And
before you get to the story, can I just cut you off one split second?
Yeah, sure.
And I will not do that again the rest of the podcast.
No, you're fine.
But this is something I might forget, and I don't want to forget. And I know you and I are big believers in this because we text each other like all the time about how people need to talk more about the things they love and like, and then the stuff they hate. And while it's on the top of my head, I've never met Tom Segura. I've never met the guy. I'm a big fan of what he does, though, as a comedian on stage, but also a bigger fan of what he does off stage, and not just with the podcast he does, but he was one of the first comedians a few years ago now, before the pandemic, who talked about how it's insane that the pay for the opening act and the features at comedy clubs has stayed essentially the same for 30 years.
Yeah, $50 for a feature,
it's $100 for like A-list clubs. It's $100 for the middle act. Everybody, when you go to a typical comedy club that has the 3-act structure, the host / MC, the middle act meaning your featured act, and then the headliner. That's the 3-act structure. The middle gets $100. Which if you're doing 6 shows over a weekend, it's like $600, yeah, but still it's underpaid. And the MC gets like $50. I think New York.
Why did I say 50? I don't know why I said 50. I meant because I know that most of the time my ticket would cost $600, and then I would make $600 for the weekend. I'd be like, well, I'm breaking even to go open for this guy,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah, your airline ticket was $600. So yeah.
So it's like you can sell merch.
Yeah, no, it's a tough racket, but he was one of the first comedians, or the first comedian I remember, that brought this to the attention of fans and people across Twitter. I remember seeing him have a series of tweets saying like, it's crazy that pay has stayed the same for decades now. It should be way better. And I see him as a guy that gives back a lot to comedians and has no problem putting other comedians over. And it seems simple enough to people listening where it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you do that? You'd be surprised how many people who should be doing more of that are not. And some people I feel like kind of go out of their way not to, in a sense.
Sure. It's I don't want to seem like I'm subtweeting anybody, but the comedians who try to make their friends successful because they're the comedians who have a bunch of successful friends.
Yeah.
And the ones who don't. All you have to do is look at like Tiffany Haddish. She's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a show and hook up the people who I feel like could use a push right now.
Which was so awesome of her.
Right. And there's but not everybody does that. Would I do that? Absolutely not. No, I would. But you can tell which ones like hook up their friends. And Tom is definitely a person who, and also it's like amazing. He has like 1.6 million followers on Instagram. He can casually mention me in a 4-minute post about Norm Macdonald and say like, go to his page, and I can get 40,000 or whatever it's at, like views in like a day, and like 1,000 new followers just because he like tossed my name out like that. Like there's power in having like a platform like that. And I would like to think that I would do the same thing. If like throw people's names out and say like, you should check out this person, and because they will listen to whatever he says, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because he's built up a trust with his audience. His audience trusts that if Tom is endorsing something or someone like you, it's probably pretty good. So I imagine they're going to be checking out your podcast, and I hope they love it as much as I like being on and I like listening to it.
I'm kind of going to think it's hilarious when I just start losing people like at a rapid rate, but we'll see.
Oh, that'll probably happen too. Some of the people will be like, "Oh, I'm going to follow this guy," and then after X amount of days, they might be like, "Not for me." And then who gives a shit though? But I don't think that's a big deal so much.
No.
Because
better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all.
There you go. It's better to have gotten 1,000 new followers and maintain 800 or whatever it's going to be. I've seen that happen. It's funny to all the non-comedians listening, which I hope is most of you. We're weirdos. Us comedians are weird. I've discovered I don't really go on Facebook much, but I will occasionally. I'll check Facebook memories. And, so you'll see something from 8 years ago and I'm like, oh man, that was a big argument. And then it's got 120 comments and I'll start reading some of the comments. I'm like, whatever happened to him? Whatever happened to her? And I'll click on these people and I'm like, I'm not friends with them anymore. What the hell did I do? Where they unfriended me on Facebook? You know what? Fuck them. I want to friend request them and unfriend request them back, because I want that kind of sweet revenge.
Yeah. I think that you've earned it. I think that you should get sweet revenge on people.
Speaking of sweet revenge, I started watching.
You want to talk about? Oh, yeah.
I started watching Dirty Work by Norm Macdonald earlier. I had to pause it to do this podcast. Tom Segura talked about a great story that he had heard from you that you got to witness live. It's so many people are sharing their great Norm Macdonald stories, and it's so many, and I want to hear them all because it's sad that he's gone, and he was so damn funny, and it's nice to revisit all these amazing stories.
So I was 17. It was 1997, and I think it's possible I was 18, whatever. I'm a teenager. I'm still in high school. It's 1997, and Iowa City, the place where the University of Iowa is, it's not the Iowa State Fair, as Tom said in the thing, and a lot of people are reposting. It's not the Iowa State Fair. It's Iowa City. They had a thing at Hancher Auditorium, which is where they would have like touring plays and like musicals, and it's a big the fanciest auditorium like in Iowa City. It's for Cats and Rent and various things like that. And they had an event called Family Night at Hancher presents Saturday Night Live. So it was Comedy Sports opening or whatever the equivalent of that was. Then Daryl Hammond doing his Bill Clinton stuff. Then Jim Brewer kind of got a little bit edgy, talked about booze. And then Norm Macdonald closed the show in this 2,000-seat theater filled with old people and little kids and people there with their families. And the first joke Norm tells as he walks out, and I say in the thing, and I'll say it to you again, like I don't do an impression of Norm, but he says, I used to be married and I used to jack off to porn more than I fucked my wife. I saw this one porn. It was a beautiful woman gets fucked by a pig, and like people are like lining out. Like they said in the paper the next day, he walked 80% of the thing, and he says like, hey, you imagine you see that woman and you ask her out on a date, she says no, and she fucks pigs for a living. The people just like fucking streaming out of there. You're like, now imagine you're that pig and you're to fuck a beautiful woman, and the doctor says cut, you gotta go back to fucking your big fat pig wife. Like in the newspapers in Iowa the next day, there were political cartoons where he has like a shepherd's hook around his neck. He had a political cartoon, he got disinvited from a golf outing the next day, and this was like 97. So in 2017, they did the 20-year anniversary thing for it, and this reporter from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, it's still online. People have sent me the article. Like, people are talking about this thing. I'm quoted in the thing. that are talking about it like Tom's described it as like they were talking about a war. But yeah, they're talking about like this night, like it was like this traumatic thing. And my mom was like, she texted me or was messaging me about it because she's like, and I messaged all those boys, like my high school friends that I went with. I went with my mom and like 2 high school friends. My mom's like, and I messaged their mothers afterwards to let them know that they were going to hear some things but I was like chaperoning. It was considered like a pretty big deal. At least it was in my little world as a teenager, who I loved Norm. Oh, and then like, this is like 97. And so the internet is just garbage at this point. But I went to like a Norm Macdonald fan page and people were like, we heard about this thing. Was anybody there? And so like, I felt so cool being like, I was there. And so I scanned in my program and like all the stuff that I had. And the guy was like, big thanks to Mike in Iowa for sending me this stuff. And I felt so cool that I got like a shout out on this Norm Macdonald, like Angel Fire page,
Way back, man. That's a great joke, by the way, though. What an awesome joke.
It's the first stand-up show. I don't know if I mentioned this. It's the first show I ever went to. And there's no YouTube or anything. So all I can see of stand-up is late night sets, Comedy Central, and then like buying an album every now and then, which was always just pure filth to my ears. Like you get like a Martin Lawrence tape or an Adam Sandler CD. It's just like, wow, they're so dirty. So I just assumed that if you go to these things, like they're just the filthiest fucking things ever. I thought comedy it was amazing.
In the 90s, album comedy in the 90s was a lot of sketch. Like Sandler was sketch more than stand up, like the more popular things I recall.
And you would think that as influential as Sandler was, more people would have done sketch albums, but the only people doing sketches on albums are fucking rappers.
Yeah, Eminem.
Yeah. Kanye.
Ken Kniff. That was like the Eminem album. I remember it was like, I'm Ken Kniff. Like he had a weird voice. I can't do the voice. Sorry, everyone, you had to deal with that. But holy shit, though, your first stand-up experience ever, the audience were running for the doors. Did that make you go, I want to be a stand-up comedian?
It felt like such an outlaw type of thing. I think that I always wanted to, or always wondered if I could, but it just, where would you do it? Where? Because like I talked to people from Chicago. I'm talking to you about this tomorrow on my own show, but like I'm picturing like Josh Cheney and different people who grew up in Chicago who knew that as soon as they were turning 21, that they wanted to do stand-up. And they knew where to do it. I had none of that in Muscatine, Iowa. And then in Iowa City, there was no comedy scene in Iowa City, like at the University of Iowa. So it's like, there's literally one place that has a comedy night when I'm like a junior. And I'm like, if that host graduates, then I might ask if I can do it. That's how it's fucking started.
That's interesting because I mean, I've heard that enough, but I was reading a Norm Macdonald article this morning. It was an interview that he did, and he was talking about just coming up as a stand-up and why he thought Canadian comedians were so good. Because the way we think Chicago comedians are better than New York and LA in a lot of sense, like where you start off at, it's like you start off in Chicago, you kind of have an edge because there was no industry in Canada. He's like, none of us thought we'd be on TV or anything like that, or write for shows or whatever. We just wanted to be the funniest stand-ups we could be because there really wasn't a scene where he was. And then he, obviously went down to Toronto and stuff like that. Went to Yuck Yucks and all those clubs. Or was it Edmonton? I can't remember what city. And then he went to, obviously New York and LA and all that stuff. But like, it's crazy that when there isn't anything there, your expectations are so low. Your environment really matters so much. That's why I think me and you texted about this. I mean, we're getting a little off gears here, but when people talk about Hollywood nepotism being a problem, I don't think it's any bigger problem as like nepotism in the plumbers union. I think it's your environment. If your parents are Hollywood famous, or not even famous, but work in Hollywood, you grew up thinking I could do that too. Right. But if you grew up in a blue collar neighborhood like that I grew up in, like real working class, and you tell your friends, I want to act one day, they'll all be like, oh, Kilgallon wants to fuck people's dads. Like they'll think you're like a pussy. They'll think you're like a little bitch. No, because nobody does that. That's just not the world. It's not your environment.
Yeah. And also it's like, you're telling them, I want to raise above my station, and I feel that I am more talented than the rest of you in a way.
Very true. Yeah, you kind of give that off. But yeah, so you grew up in Iowa. You're like, I don't think this is a thing you could do. But I'm sure seeing Norm that night made you think, damn, that dude literally said whatever the hell he wanted. How cool was that?
There was something very awesome about it. It was also a lesson to me that you can be awesome at something and have 80% of the people hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember thinking anything bad about it. I thought it was cool from start to finish. And the fact that my mom was like freaked out about it was probably helpful.
Yeah, that's true.
Know, like if my mom was like, I remember when my mom was like, I kind of like this song. Who is it? And it was Pearl Jam. And I was like, shut up. Like, you're not allowed to like, because she used to do this thing where she'd be like, I'd be listening to like a Nirvana album. And she'd be like, you better take this back to the store. I think it's broken. Like, and that was like her joke, but I loved it because I didn't want, you don't want your mom to like the music that you're into, or it's like whack. But in Tom's thing, when he was talking about the story that I loved, that I've thought about a lot in the past since yesterday, was how the comedians deferred to him. Some of the biggest, like SNL produces, obviously, some of the biggest comedy stars in the world, and how people like Sandler and Rock and whoever else, like I'm sure Conan also would defer to him in comedic situations because they didn't care who the biggest box office star was. They knew that he was the fucking funniest dude.
Yeah.
And so many like great people mentioned like Turd Ferguson, which is so
those were
great.
The best. All the Jeopardy stuff.
The Jeopardy stuff, the Conan couches when he rips on the woman from Melrose Place, I want to say.
Courtney Thorne Smith she was plugging a movie and he just could not stop trashing what the movie
Chairman of the board, yeah.
Because Carrot Top was in it too, and all it was so funny. And the Moth story, like, yeah, they're just legendary. Just he had such a great style. I love Norm Macdonald's style because I don't know, I'm very comfortable on stage, but every now and then I think to myself, if there's a little bit of too much quiet, I sense I'm like one of those drummers that will just speed it up sometimes when it's like you got a damn beat. And I feel myself like if it's not going exactly the way it should, you know, where I'm like, oh, these jokes aren't hitting the way they should. I'll catch myself speeding up my delivery a little bit because I really want to grab them. And it works a lot of times. But when I listen to the playback, I'm like, oh, man. But then I see Norm, and that dude could just calmly sit in it, knowing that the punchline is going to do what the punchline's supposed to do. Dry, I guess you'd use the word. But the word dry, sometimes I feel like people use like, oh, real dry wit. I'm like, dry is great. I'm a fan of a dry wit.
Yeah, he didn't look like he was selling you anything. That's dry.
Good call.
Like, so what's interesting is that comedians loved when he would bomb. And I don't know what that is. Because, like, obviously, like, we all like the funniest people. They're like killer motherfuckers. But also there's a part of us that knows that it's not a meritocracy, that sometimes shitty, awful people kill the hardest or are the most popular, and that the shit that we like is watching those people confidently bomb and make those audience members suffer. I don't know why we like that.
Yeah, I don't know why we do either. Yeah, everyone listening, next time you're at a comedy club, like preferably one that does like showcase style, but you know, for any comedy show where there's like 5 or 6 comedians go up, if one is kind of eating shit, you're going to hear people in the back of the room laughing, and it's usually the other comedians. And I get a kick out of it sometimes. Seeing like people you know are good struggle too for whatever reason.
Especially if it's a comic that everybody likes, that the comics like, and they see you bombing. And also, it means a lot of things. If your buddy is bombing on stage and you're dying in the back, it's because you're like with them. You know what I mean? Like that's also like they're not laughing at you. You know what I mean? That's your friend who's dying laughing.
Or sometimes it's because we gave them like a tip where it's like, hey, I think you should say this part of the joke here. And they do that and eat shit. And you're just in the back like, you fucking listen to me, you piece of shit. Why would you listen to me? Stuff like that is hilarious. Dude, I love that you brought up how all of those amazing comedians, whenever it was something funny, they were like, well, it's, Norm's the funniest here. I always appreciate that stuff because I feel like the general populace doesn't always get that. I think they sometimes think to themselves, oh, the most famous person's the best at a thing. And I mean, not a lot of people, most people are kind of cool enough to get it, but there are some people out there who don't understand that. It's like, no, trust me, this person knows that they're not the best in the room. They know that this person is better than them or whatever. And it's not even like about that always, but I saw someone shared a picture of Chappelle and Norm Macdonald, and Chappelle had a look on his face like, I get to be in a picture of Norm Macdonald. Like his face was lit up.
Don't get me wrong, Chappelle is the shit. Like, don't get me wrong.
I love Chappelle. I think Chappelle's on my Mount Rushmore.
And sometimes the most popular people, you have a picture of Richard Pryor behind you. I mean, who's better than that guy? But at the same time, there's also the McDonald's factor, which is, billion served, but not the best restaurant.
True. Yeah.
Derek Jeter's not the best baseball player that's ever fucking lived.
But he's probably the most famous of the last 35 years.
Yeah.
Probably, right? I mean, I don't know big baseball guys. So
surrounded by a good team. But I mean, he's a Hall of Fame. But it's more of like a restaurant analogy, I guess, than a
I like the McDonald's one because like, look, right now, The Rock and Kevin Hart are the biggest box office superstars. So they're McDonald's. And they're good.
The Rock's not the best actor in the world.
No, he's not the best actor in the world. That's kind of the point I was going with that, right? And Kevin Hart's not the best stand-up in the world.
We're not saying Joe Rogan.
They're not talented, and they're clearly great at what they do. Like McDonald's serves great French fries, but it's not the best restaurant.
But sometimes it's hype. Sometimes it's Dane Cook walking around like it's a bunch of people on MySpace who are big fans of a haircut and a t-shirt, and he has nobody talks about that shit anymore.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that all those people who are massive Dane Cook fans, and you're not going to hear me say anything bad about Dane Cook, everybody. I've met the guy a handful of times, and he was so nice to me every time I met him. I did shows at the Laugh Factory with him.
I'm just referring to his widespread fucking. He didn't ask to be the biggest comic on the planet with zero jokes. He just ended up. No,
and I'm not saying you're saying anything negative about him. I just wanted to throw that out there because I feel like there's so many people who dump on him, or I'm like, it almost became a hack. So many people would dump on that guy.
Sure, I agree. Right. I mean, then obviously, like, okay, Larry the Cable Guy, Dane Cook. There is you were just obviously like a fucking like world-class level talent of stage presence, something to get there.
Yeah, no. To get back on the point, I don't think you were slamming them at all. You were just using them as examples of people who became mega stars because they were able to pitch themselves to a certain part of the population and all that stuff. That has nothing to do. I think bringing that up is fair game because, here we are 15 years later and nobody has either of those guys, even though it's like those two dudes are probably two of the richest comedians as far as selling tickets at one point. Easily, Dane Cook and Larry the Cable Guy.
Easily.
But you ask 100 people, give me your top 10 greatest comedians of all time, and 100 people who like know a little bit about comedy, not quite random, like 100 people who know a little comedy.
He's going to be in nobody's list.
Exactly. That's like the point there.
0 people's list.
Yeah, and they probably wouldn't even be in their own list. I don't know if they would even have themselves in their own list.
It goes me. Like Dave Attell not doing Madison Square Garden. And who's better than Dave Attell? Who is better than like Hedberg? Who is better than, there's a ton of people that we could name. Like, who's funnier than fucking, I don't know, Sean Flannery?
Dude, I saw CJ Sullivan.
CJ Sullivan
last week.
Doing this fucking Wizard of Oz joke. Like, are you like
so good? It was one of the best sets I've seen in a really long time. And I'm really happy. Shout out to CJ Sullivan. Everyone look him up. Dude, sober, looking good,
Oh my God, yeah.
Absolute monster on stage. Just amazing sets I saw him have when he was in Chicago last week. He's got a podcast called Visitors Locker Room. I don't know if they're doing new episodes, but there's plenty of stuff to look up. CJ Sullivan and Sean Flannery. But I mean, that's just the nature of the business and show business in general. Getting off topic a little bit here, Addison Ray is a TikTok star with 80 million followers, and people are mad that Netflix signed her to a deal. And I'm like, I get it. They're trying to make money. They need eyeballs. That's what the industry needs. Yeah. It's not like if you come from a world of sports like me and you, we grew up big sports fans. Yeah. I think we get the most angry at times, although we're both level-headed people, I'm sure. Because in our brains, it's like, no. That guy went 4 for 4. The person who had 3 doubles and a home run, they're the ones that get talked about on the sports page the next day.
Yeah.
But in comedy, it's not like that. You could go to the greatest comedy show in the world, and then the next day you're reading an article and they're like, wait a minute, how come they didn't mention Sean Flannery or CJ Sullivan or whoever? I don't get it. Why are they mentioning this person who had one good joke and the rest was kind of like, eh?
Yeah, stand-up is interesting in that the thing that you are actually trying to be good at matters almost the least to the people who are in charge of it. The people the gatekeepers of stand-up want you to either write or preferably be a movie star. And if you don't really want to do either one of those things, then they have no fucking time for you. And for casting purposes, like, it behooves you to be whatever is sexy in terms of casting at that moment. If Joe was a beautiful woman, it would be a lot more benefit. Or if I was a beautiful man, it would be a lot more than whatever the fuck I look like and whatever Joe looks like. They want you to have a cool backstory. Man, I'm getting to it like a weird. I don't want people to read into anything that I'm saying.
No, I hear what you're saying, but what they're doing, it's also like what's in now too. Everything goes in waves, right? That's why, like with music, and we're going to talk about some music in a second now. It's a thing where I was reading this thing about why 90s music was so great. And I know it sounds like, people know I'm a big 90s music fan, but I'm not being biased. It was a podcast that friend of the podcast, Marty DeRosa, turned me on to. I can't remember the name of the podcast for the life of me, but it was a really good podcast with some Canadian guy. And record companies, CDs had just come out in the 90s. And CDs were so cheap to make, and the profit margin on selling an album in CD form was huge. It was like $15.99 when they first came out, and it cost them a nickel to make it. So these record companies were at the richest they'd ever been.
You had to buy CDs. You couldn't download the shit. So.
Yeah, it was before download, before anything digital, and vinyl was slowly fading away. CDs were really taken over in mass. And
vinyl wasn't fading away. Vinyl was non-existent.
You're right. It was dead. They stopped making them.
Tapes. Tapes and CDs.
Cassette tapes. There was tapes and there was CDs, and that was it. Because, there's a lot of... I've got like In Utero on vinyl, their Nirvana album, that was never printed originally in vinyl ever.
Yeah.
Maybe someone had a copy of it for themselves, but like it was never sold in stores as a vinyl record. Anyhow, though, so these record companies decided that, well, we're making all this money, let's gamble more, in a sense. They were signing little bands all over the place and going, yeah, we'll make your album, because it was so... Their thought process was, it costs nothing to make this. If it takes off, we're fucking rich. So they saw every band as a lottery ticket. But then when digital came in, Napster and everything streaming and, the iPod and all that, it made them become more conservative, where they took way less risk because their profit margins were smaller. And that's why I think a lot of rock and roll music, at least, is not, at least mainstream rock. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of great bands all over the place. But as far as what you hear on the radio goes, it's just not what it was. And yeah, because it's like, that's just like an industry problem right there. And you notice too, whenever one type of band blows up, all of a sudden you hear 10 other ones that sound just like them.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with a friend about like 2003 to 2007. It was Fall Out Boy blew up. Then all of a sudden All American Rejects came out. Then 8 other bands that sounded just like that band. Same with the grunge in the 90s. Nirvana hit big, and then it's like sign everybody out of Seattle, put them on the radio. And the same thing with comedy and movies. And if a certain look becomes in, then all of a sudden you start to see, like, I remember the Jesse Eisenberg, Michael Cera type of role became real popular for 3 or 4 years.
When I moved to LA, Galifianakis and Seth Rogen were huge, and so people were like booking me to be that motherfucking look. So I'm not complaining about that move. That move like saved my ass a few times.
Yeah, I don't think any. I think, yeah, it's not. There's not a right or wrong. It's just what it is. So
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
out
yeah.
there, listen, if you're out there and you're a young actor and you're like, when's it gonna be my time? Just keep doing what you're doing, and then maybe the way you look will become a thing, or whatever. It's really, you just don't know what's gonna
Just
become in.
if just be as good as you can be for when the luck fucking points at you at dumbass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I mean, there is a lot of luck to it, but
yeah,
you have to, work too. You can't just not do any work towards that.
yeah. You gotta
Create your own luck. I know it
have
feels like it's like,
something.
yeah, it's like old. We're doing like fucking drunk uncle advice. You create your own luck, damn it. But there is some truth to that. You do have to get lucky in a sense, but the people who usually get lucky are people who put themselves in that spot.
You also don't hear about all the shots on goal that a lot of those people take before the thing happens either.
Yeah, you don't, but yeah, I know we started this talking about Norm Macdonald, and it's a bummer, man. I really like that guy. I'm gonna go back and revisit a lot of his comedy. It's always sad when stand-up comedians die, especially unexpected, not just because it's our world that you and I live in as comedians, but because when you think of them, you just think of so much joy and happiness and laughter, like Robin Williams' death, I remember taking really hard. This one, it was like a real bummer. It just
That
like
was on my birthday.
sucks. He died on your birthday too, huh?
Robin Williams died on my birthday. That was fucking crazy.
How's the cake?
The Norm Macdonald story that I love, I think the most, is the pitch meetings at SNL. People would love when they would get to him, and I have heard that this was also the case with Hannibal. This is what that they would just love to hear their pitches because it would be the most insane shit ever. Like he didn't know that like before the meeting, like somebody would be like, "What are you going to pitch?" And he'd be like, "I don't have anything. Like I don't know. I didn't know we were supposed to do this." And so it got around to him, and he like looks like he's making it up as he goes. And he goes, "You know that those things on the highway that are for runaway trucks?" And people are like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, it's a house at the end of it." And this guy's like, "Oh no," and there's always trucks crashing into his house. And he riffed that on the spot. I think it's in like a Jay Moore book or something. That made me laugh so fucking hard the first time. Just picturing that dude riff that in the fucking setting it was hilarious to me.
You know what else he did? He came off as that I really liked about him? Unapologetically himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said earlier, he was never selling you on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people respond to in a lot of ways. And it's nice, it's refreshing in a world where you feel like you're always being sold, to have a guy like that just unapologetically himself. And when you're like that, you're gonna have some people hate you, but it feels like most people for the most part are saying really nice things. I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be the internet and who knows what not, and all that kind of stuff. Brido's looking at me because he's like, "Oh, I think I saw some tweets you saw too earlier."
Yeah,
but
I sent you a tweet today, but
yeah, but anyway, we don't need to talk about that.
No. We do. It's unsubstantiated mental illness. That's what that was.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where.
And also, can I say when people are like, "I hate when someone makes a death about themselves." Sometimes people just want to say how much somebody meant to them. And it's not a selfish act. It's an expression of grief, and there's no wrong way to grieve. And if somebody meant a lot to you and you're expressing that in a thought online and sharing it with other people and maybe informing them about some of the things that they should check out, I don't think that that's a selfish act. And sometimes people are just fucking bozos.
I agree. There's people I like who will make those posts where it's like, "Hey, celebrity death, make sure it's about you." Because people will make posts where it's like, "I'll never forget the time I saw him at this place," but they're just sharing a memory.
They're just sharing a memory.
That's what wakes and funerals are. Everyone's standing around going, "Hey, you know what? Remember that one time? Remember that time that asshole shit his pants at the carnival?" Like that's what that is. So I don't understand why people get.
Who is the death for? Norm? Fuck off.
Yeah, he's fucking dead.
He's not here.
I agree, man. I agree 100%. If nothing, you're just sharing cool shit about the person who just died.
If
making
you're
it about
accusing
yourself.
him shit after he dies that he can't defend himself for, that what the fuck do you get out of it? And why are you even putting that out there like it's a badge of honor? That's a whole other fucking thing.
That is a good point too. I mean, when someone dies and you see all of a sudden like accusations about it and all that, it was funny because I remember seeing a few things where I'm like, I don't think these people realize he's dead, because people were like asking for justice from, and I'm like, justice, he's dead.
He's canceled.
Yeah, you can't get more canceled than dead.
No.
So something to think about. All right, let's shift gears ever so slightly. Rolling Stone magazine put out their top 500 songs. Everyone just came out. Check it out. Go to rollingstone.com. Music. I don't need to plug them, but I don't know why I told you. I just want people to find the list. For some reason, I'm like, rollingstone.com. I'm going to do the whole top 20. I'll say.
Do all 500, Joe.
I'm going to do 500. But I like almost am a bigger fan of songs 20 to 11 than I am 10 to 1.
Well, some songs are just important, right? Like,
I agree.
Good. They're just important.
So there's number 20 is a song. I don't even know this song. Came out in 2010 by Robyn, spelled Robyn.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Dancing on My Own.
Okay, so this song, I remember thinking, what the fuck is this? Never heard of it. Then it got Song of the Decade in the 2010s, because like 2019, they put out this fucking list, greatest song of the decade. That was number 1. And I'm like, what is this? So
how does it go?
I don't remember, but apparently it's a fucking pop song, and it's been in a lot of shows, and it's influenced a lot of people who also make shit like this.
Yeah, I mean, Swedish dance pop music, very popular.
So
it's pretty cute in the picture.
It's like they chose it, and here's the thing: like, I looked up 2010 songs of the year. It was like number 15 in 2010, but I guess the influence of sometimes it's like you can't judge how good Joe Kilgallon is as a comedian till you see his influence on the comics that came after him, which is unknowable in 2021.
This is true. This is very true. All right, but no, that's a great point though. Well, here's like a song that probably had a big influence. Number 19's John Lennon, Imagine. I think that's a fine,
unquestionably great song.
Yes. Very great song. Very touching. A little anecdote about this song. Bill Murray was on, I think, Charlie Rose, like early 2000s. So like a long time ago. I just happened to catch it one night, or, flipping through the channels late on maybe Tuesday, was a rerun or something. And he talked about going to the candlelight, what's the word? Vigil? Is that visual? Virgil? Vigil for John Lennon. There's some words I'm like, I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna fuck it up. And it was at Central Park in New York. He lived in Manhattan. That's where he was assassinated, I guess you'd use, or murdered. And they did a moment of silence, and everyone in the park, hundreds of thousands of people there probably, got incredibly quiet for the moment of silence. And then the moment of silence was broken by this song starting. And this song's got that beautiful piano melody. Yeah. And he said as soon as that started to kick in, just bawling, everyone just bawling their eyes. He goes, everywhere you look, just tears streaming down people's faces. And when I think of the song Imagine, I think of Bill Murray telling that story.
Wow.
Number 18. This is a great song. Purple Rain by Prince and the Revolution.
That is a great song. Yeah, unquestionably great song. I don't know if it's better than Imagine, if I'm being honest, but
yeah, I don't know if it is either, but I'm okay with it. I'm not. Some of these I'm not going to fight, is what my point is.
I'd rather hear Purple Rain at a party and slow dance to it than Imagine. I don't know if I've ever been at a party when someone's like, put on Imagine, really get this thing cooking.
That's an argument that some people have with they rate music or they rank their music. Like, what will get you up dancing? And I'm like, well, some songs you don't want to get up and dance to.
Yeah,
some songs you want to feel and soak in.
Like that Hallelujah song. Like, what's that? What are you supposed to do with that?
Leonard Cohen, that's a phenomenal song. I wonder where that's on at this list. Number 17, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's a banger. That's an all-time banger.
All-time banger. I want to hear it in my car so I can do the Wayne's World thing.
I think my favorite one, I think it's a Green Day concert in England when it's just a sea of people, like 300,000 people, and they're all singing it. Like there's footage you can watch on YouTube of just like a sea of humanity. And I think that I got goosebumps now thinking about it, but I think that in the middle of COVID, when I hadn't seen, if we know, we could be in the middle of COVID right now, but at the beginning of, in 2020, in the middle of 2020, watching that, I think it made me cry because like I was so longing to just be around anybody.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of people doing something at the same time. And it was so awesome that I believe that I teared up.
Dude, whenever I see awesome concert footage, it's always European concert footage.
Yeah, Glastonbury, or like, yeah.
Look, we got to step it up in our concert game, man, because I feel like every time I see a concert, I'm like, damn, I want to be in that crowd. I'm like, where was this? Oh, Hamburg, Germany. Where was this? Brussels. I'm like, what are we doing?
You ever seen Limp Bizkit do break stuff at Woodstock 99? That looked pretty tight.
By the way, I'm going to watch that documentary, I think, when I get done with you tonight, because my friend Mike Gall, shout out to Mike Gall, I did a really cool event with him today, but he was like, dude, you got to watch this documentary, and you were telling me how good it is. I got to check it out. You
have to watch that, yeah.
Woodstock 99, everyone.
HBO,
all right.
HBO Max.
Yeah, I just logged into it earlier because I was watching Dirty Work on there. Norm Macdonald, shout out. This one, number 16, Beyonce featuring Jay-Z, Crazy in Love. It's a banger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd have it in the top 20 songs of
all time. What
What
year was that?
That came out in 2003.
He has a great verse on that. I don't know. People who like Beyonce love Beyonce and like love that song. I think that was in my wedding list, and I think that my wife put it there.
I like that song. That's maybe my favorite Beyonce song, and I think Beyonce is wildly overrated. And people
not the one with Sean Paul. Sean Paul. Oh, you're not allowed. Dude, they'll take you right over. He's kidding everybody.
Yeah,
I had no part in.
You want to get out of the shot.
I am not in the K-Hive like assassination scope. Or the
Look,
Beehive.
She's great,
sorry,
but
the K-Hive is Congo. Like Beehive.
Yeah, the Beehive. All right, number 15, the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Great song. It was their first number one.
That's their first number one.
So that's why I think it's more the influence of it that put it so high.
Yeah, it's like without that song, who knows if there's Imagine or the other ones that are coming up.
Also, apparently in 1963, the Beatles gave themselves an ultimatum. We're not going to America till we got a number one record, Paul McCartney declared. So he and John went to the home of the parents of John Asher, McCartney's girlfriend at the time, and they said they were like eyeball to eyeball, as Lennon later put it, and they wrote, I Want to Hold Your Hand. You know, and it's a good tune. It's very early 60s pop rock and roll type thing, and obviously there's an innuendo there because nobody wants to just hold someone's hand, but, you know, in 1964, you couldn't write, I want to finger bang on the bus. You gotta be more discreet.
I want to finger bang on the bus. My grandfather one time wrote a song about the Cedar Rapids River, the Cedar River, called I Want to Hold My Nose. Because Quaker Oats makes it stink real bad in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Joe, you know.
I know. I've been to Cedar Rapids many times, and it's a nice town with a lot of weird smells. Going to number 14, we've got the Kinks, Waterloo Sunset.
Do I know that song?
I feel like I know it.
I know.
I wish I had the legal right to play these songs.
The Kinks was like, You Really Got Me is the Kinks, right?
Yes, and I'm surprised that's not there.
Lola is the Kinks. Waterloo Sunset, I got nothing. And it's what? Better than I Want to Hold Your Hand? Are you fucking kidding me?
It's not.
Is it a sponsored ad? What is this?
Yeah. Number 13, the Rolling Stones, Gimme Shelter. That's a good tune.
Yeah, that's a great song.
It's a great song. So I'm
is that their highest song? Tell me it's not.
It is. That's what's the conundrum about
Where's Satisfaction?
Where's Satisfaction? I would even put Paint It Black as a higher song than Gimme Shelter. That's just me personally, though. Or the one that Scorsese uses in all his movies. Just a Shot Away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 12 is Stevie Wonder's Superstition. It's a good tune.
Yeah. It's not my favorite. I like a Sir Duke. I like I like the dumb ones. I like I Just Called to Say I Love You.
I like Happy Birthday. That's a good tune.
When you're when half of your family is black, you get the white happy birthday and the Stevie happy birthday on your birthday.
Nice. Sweet perk. All right. Number 11. This one I like, actually. I'm okay with the ranking on this song. It's the Beach Boys' God Only Knows.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, yes, that should be higher.
That should be, I almost feel like that should be higher in a sense. That's an amazingly.
That's such a complex song.
Yeah, Brian Wilson really was a genius in a lot of ways. It's an emotional song, right? You know?
Yeah. That song is, yeah. I saw the Beach Boys at Hollywood Bowl, and the whole time I was fucking shit faced. And it was like old people just sitting in their chairs and not getting up and shit. And I kept screaming at them, like, what are you doing? They have nothing but hits. I kept yelling, nothing but hits. And they
were another band too, like the Beatles in a sense, where like, the Beatles start off with songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand, which again are great songs.
Yeah.
Beach Boys started off with like Surfing USA or something like that. And then the progression of like where they went with like Pet Sounds, and they went into this like using whole orchestras and just the complex melody. I mean, they're both very, very cool. I kind of like that. Every now and then there's a band you like where all of a sudden they have an album that's not like their other stuff, and you're like, God, this sucks. Those bands, they got better as they went, and they challenged themselves. So I like that kind of.
Pet Sounds was shots fired to the Beatles. The Beatles were like, oh, word, like they put that out, and the Beatles were like, oh, well, we're not the greatest band in the world anymore, unless we fucking come back hard. And then they came back with Sgt. Pepper and Revolver, and we're like, sorry, we're number ones. But
and then the White Album's pretty badass.
Yeah, they're all good. Magical Mystery Tour probably got some good ones.
Yeah, there's some hits on that album too. It's so crazy about the Beatles is like as they got a little bit later, and they were all still like their late 20s. They weren't even old because they just put out so many albums in such a short period of time. But if the Beatles were an American band in like today's time, how bands will talk a little trash, they'd be like, oh, by the way, this dude, the quiet one. Turns out he could write some songs too.
I also love it's like, did you hear about my friend George? It's really sad. He got into drugs pretty bad. And what happened? He wrote 5 albums worth of awesome shit that changed the world.
Yeah, he wrote Here Comes the Sun, something, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, by the way, is the greatest solo by Prince ever on that tribute to him. You ever see that? They did like when George Harrison died, they did a concert for George, and they did this amazing version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps with like some of the greatest guitar players ever on there. Clapton's on the stage, Tom Petty's on the stage, like all these old blues guys.
Clapton's the guitar player in the song.
Yeah, true. Paul McCartney said in that documentary, goes, George could have done it, but he's friends with Eric, so he had Eric come on out, which again, it's kind of like Tom Segura. We were talking about him in the beginning, help a famous friend helping another not as famous, although later became more famous and ended up marrying his ex-wife. So those dudes shared too much stuff, really. Someone brought up Pattie Boyd has 2 of the greatest love songs in history written about her. Something by George Harrison and Layla by Eric Clapton.
Wow. So he got her, she's got him on his knees, and something in the way she moves.
Yeah.
That she really fucked.
She must have had the best pussy ever.
What do you think it was? What do you think she did? She put her finger in his butt? What do you think she did?
Maybe she was the pioneer for that. You know how it's like commonplace now? She was doing it first.
She was the first person to slip a digit.
Yeah.
I don't know what she did.
Well, it was something. All right. Yeah, but that's so amazing with the Beatles is that later George started writing songs, and they happened to also be phenomenal tunes. But I was going to say Prince was on that stage for that great, like tribute song that they did of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Prince came out and did his solo, and all these other phenomenal musicians, even the ones like some of the musicians on the stage where I'm like, who the fuck is they? I looked them up and I'm like, oh, they're like one of the greatest session guitarists ever. Like just like these insane people. And all of them were looking at Prince like, what the fuck is this guy up to? Like that's how much Prince was dominating on that stage. It was incredible.
I looked it up while you were talking, and she was the first woman, I guess, to use her hand and mouth at the same time.
She a little mind the stepchildren, as they say.
She had a little half and half.
Very good. Very good. Number 10, Outkast, Hey Ya. I love the song. A little surprised it's number 10 though.
I wonder why it
Came
is
out in
so
03.
high. I mean, that was a big hit.
Yeah, it was
That
the
was
year
on-
I graduated high school.
It was one of those crazy things where I think that everybody admitted it was good.
Yes, universally liked. Even people who are probably like, I'm a tough guy who likes speed metal is probably like, oh, yeah, that's a good tune. You could turn it up. You know,
It was
it's a fun song
also
to dance to. Weddings, it's a hit.
It was also a rapper being fucking weird as hell, and everybody being like, I guess.
Very true.
Polaroid had to come out and be like, please don't shake the photos. It is not good.
I'm sure it helped Polaroid pictures though.
Yeah.
Here's when I read this track, I'm going to number 9 now. I immediately then questioned the entire list because I know that this is what is called recency bias.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
number 9 is Fleetwood Mac Dreams.
Oh,
Now, I love Fleetwood Mac. I have this album on vinyl, Rumors.
Yeah.
Dreams is not the best song on the album.
what is the best song on the album?
To me, I like The Chain. The Chain's my favorite song. Even Landslide, I like better than Dreams. Dreams is amazing, but remember everyone, last summer of 2020, this dude had a TikTok video of him drinking cranberry juice out of the bottle, skateboarding while singing Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. And it blew up, and everyone's doing their rendition of it and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's why this song is number 9.
Hypothetically, I met that guy recently.
What's his name? Dogface or something?
Yeah, I can't confirm it, but it's possible that I may know someone who met him recently.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You can't confirm nor deny.
I'm
I know
realizing
someone who
I
met
don't know
him.
if I can say if I met somebody or not. I don't know.
Well, my buddy CJ Toledano, everyone who's been on this podcast, when he was working for House of Highlights, he actually used it to start his own company now called Follow Through LA, in which he does like ad campaigns for shoe companies. He's working with Bleacher Report right now and other such stuff. Anyway, he like creates like viral ads and stuff like that. And the one was when the Lakers won the NBA Finals against the Heat in 2020. They had that exact dude. They got a hold of him and they got him to film himself with a Laker jersey on. I think they sent him a Laker jersey. I don't even know if he had one. And he's reenacting the same thing, but like
the champagne, right?
Yeah, drinking champagne because the Lakers had just won. And I'm like, that's a genius idea, and I'm glad you got to pull off that video. So he met.
I saw that one before I saw the other one.
Oh, so you saw that and you didn't know that was him parodying himself, essentially.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if Dreams, if that hadn't happened, if Dreams would even be that high. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a great
obviously
song.
they were huge. Fleetwood Mac was fucking huge, but
huge, yeah. Rumors, especially, is considered an all-time album. Number 8 is Missy Elliott, Get Your Freak On.
That surprises the shit out of me.
Very surprising to me.
What does it say? Can you say what it says?
It says like, all right, here we go. They got a few paragraphs on there, so I can't really read the whole thing.
Don't get me wrong, that song banger. If that song comes on, I'm happy. I love it. I love the video. Everything about that is great. But I believe I looked at the list earlier and like I Can't Stand the like that song, Super Duper Fly, is like in the 400s, the high 400s. Why is this song top 10?
I like what's the one bang down, flip it, and reverse it. Like
yeah, never.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's I think they're trying to push the influence of the song. It was something hypnotic about those records. Missy and Tim took over the radio in the late 90s, just two kids out of Portsmouth, Virginia, blowing minds with their unique space funk. So it was Missy Elliott and Timberland, and that's who Tim is. They call him Tim for short, even though Timberland is whatever. I heard Tim right away. I'm like, who the hell is Tim? I had to look up, and I saw Timberland as a co-creator or co-writer. They're trying to call it like a space funk sound and all this stuff. So I think they're kind of leaning into like, oh, it was pretty, nobody else was doing anything like that at the time. And here's another quote.
Yeah, it was unique.
It was unique. Yeah. It's like everyone who heard it loved it. It had some Japanese stuff mixed with a hip hop beat. Yeah. Anyway, so I think they're kind of pushing the influence of that track in particular, I guess. Number 7 is the Beatles' Strawberry Fields Forever, writers Lennon and McCartney. I'm shocked by this one. It's
because that's their highest song.
It's the highest song by the Beatles, is number 7, which is, and it's this one. You don't have Yesterday in your top 10.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? You don't like. I'm just a little shocked that
Hey Jude.
I thought Hey Jude would probably make the top 20, perhaps.
Yesterday is what's considered the Beatles' best song. Yesterday.
Well, Yesterday is the most covered song in recording music history. Like
that's got to say something right there.
It should. Yesterday is just such a beautifully written song. There's not a whole lot of music behind it, really. I think it's just Paul plucking at some strings.
Strawberry Fields is beautiful. It's not on an album, as we were saying earlier. I do like Ben Harper's version better than the Beatles. It's the only Beatles cover besides Joe Cocker's that I like more than the actual Beatles song.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Joe Cocker's version of A Little Help with My Friends is better than the Beatles. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I mean, they wrote it, though. I remember hearing Paul in an interview going, Ringo was so popular, we like to give Ringo one song an album. And, you know, we wrote songs with less vocal range for Ringo. Like, he's like, I'm not saying that as a knock on Ringo. Love Ringo, of course. But, you know, just being honest. Like, you know, Yellow Submarine and Little Help with My Friends, they're very, like, there's not a lot of vocal range. A guy who can't sing like me could kind of sing along and not be too embarrassed by it. But, yeah, I don't know. The Beatles, but I'm thinking like My Life by the Beatles. Or I'm thinking of like, even like Come Together or you know, Help and Hard Day's Night. And I mean, those are some of the earlier songs, but going later years, you know, like
but like
Let It Be, you'd think would be higher on the list.
Yeah, man, all good songs.
Here Comes
all
the
great
Sun.
songs.
Something. I mean, they had 27 number one hit singles. So
what is the reasoning behind Strawberry Fields? What are they saying there?
All right, let's hear what it said. Let's see if I can skim to it. Opened up a whole new psychedelic era for the Beatles. See, I think a lot of this is what they're influencing it with, changing the way pop music was heard and made after this song came out. But it began with Lennon alone on a Spanish beach with an acoustic guitar, writing a song about his painful childhood memory. Strawberry Field was the name of a Liverpool orphanage where he used to play and hide from the world as a boy. And he's like, I have visions of Strawberry Fields, he told Rolling Stone in 1968, because Strawberry Fields is anywhere you want to go. It's a psychedelic-ish song, you know what I mean?
Here's how crazy the Beatles are. That is not on an album.
I know.
It's just like I'm still wrapping my head around it.
Dude, you know what else is not on an album? All You Need Is Love, I'm pretty sure, is not on an album.
It's crazy. And in that Rick Rubin thing, he's like, that's how cocky we were. We were like, we don't need the single to sell it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. There was a great story about the Beatles too, where you know, they had some song, maybe Hey Jude was running a little bit long, or some other song was running a little long, and they're like, they're not going to play this song, it runs too long on the radio. And John goes, they'll fucking play it, we're the Beatles. Which I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong.
I did love that McCartney's like now later in life is having this moment that he's like, in the moment it was just my friend John, like, but now I look back and I'm like, it's John fucking Lennon.
Yeah,
you know? He's realizing like, holy shit, like that's who I was with the whole time.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of that documentary we're talking about. It's on Hulu, everyone, called McCartney 321, where one of the most famous record producers of all time, Rick Rubin, is interviewing Paul McCartney. They're going track by track, and they're playing with this big, crazy board where they could isolate the vocals and isolate the bass and really just point out stuff where you're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that's why I like this song so much. Like the song All My Lovin', which was an early Beatles hit. Paul goes, you hear that? That's John. John did this thing doing harmony where he decided to start doing this. And when he was playing with him, I remember going, oh, that's amazing. And then he goes, try doing that for 3.5 minutes. Like this crazy, like I can't, I'm like, listen to the song, everybody. But like they isolate it and you're like, fuck, that seems so simple, but holy shit, that makes the song. Without that, this song is not the song. And the one thing is, though, what you're saying about Paul realizing, it's John Lennon, you know, like there were some cool parts to that, but then he had one part where he's like, oh yeah, we were doing a lot of LSD during this period. And then he'd like, I remember this one time, I'm like, do you remember this one time? You just talked about how much massive amounts of drugs you all were taking and you're remembering every single detail. Part of me is questioning how exact he was, because there was a few things he had said where I later looked it up and I'm like, that's not how the original story was, like, or something I'd read about. And I'm like,
also, when's the last time Paul McCartney's ever said anything where somebody's going, no, you fucking didn't?
Never.
Like,
nobody's ever going to challenge
no
that.
one's told him anything like that since 1963.
That's true. What an amazing life to have, to be in that kind of
I
position.
love it though that he gets to sit back and appreciate some of the shit like that he's done. And it's like that story I heard about like Pete Townsend, I want to say, like Baba O'Reilly came on the radio and he was just like, God damn, I fucking wrote that shit. And I was like, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Dude,
that you get to do that.
I love that. I love when artists of any kind, comedians, actors, writers, whatever, musicians, of course, too, that's what we're talking about. And they know, oh no, that's great. Like they're like into it. Someone told me a great story of, and I've seen this booth or this suite being shown on TV. So when the Cubs play the Dodgers, it's always a lot of celebrities, when it's in LA. And apparently Conan O'Brien usually gets a suite for that. And in the suite was Jack White, the White Stripes.
Yeah.
And if anyone who's ever been to a Dodger game knows they play Seven Nation Army, where they kind of like play off the music video to that song, where they got like the LA logo and they're kind of like zooming in like the way that music video does with like a triangle or whatever they're doing. And the song came on and Conan says to Jack White, like, oh, is this kind of weird for you? Or are you a little bit like, this song again? And he goes, are you kidding me? This is amazing. I love this shit. Like, why would I ever get sick of 50,000 people singing along to something I wrote? Like, and it's not even me singing it right now. It's a recording of me singing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I thought, I'm like, good for him. That's so cool. Instead of being one of those like, yeah, I don't really like it. You know what I mean? He was like, this is great. Why wouldn't I love this?
But also, what is that question? Hey, don't you hate this? Why would someone fucking hate it?
Yeah, I don't know if he asked if you hated it or if you thought it was weird or does this make you feel weird? How, like, but yeah, you're right. Why would you hate that? I wouldn't even want to ask that, because if the answer was, yeah, this makes me uncomfortable, I'd be like, get the fuck out of my suite. Like, take that shit to the fucking grandstand.
See this, all these people. I hate each and every one of them.
Yeah. And I hope the Dodgers lose. Actually, that part I think I'd be cool if he said.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dodger fans. Number 6, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, 1971, written by Marvin Gaye, Ronaldo Benson, and Al Cleveland. I'm a big fan of this song. It's a cool groove,
Yeah.
So I'm cool with this being number 6. No argument here. Number 5, Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, writer Kurt Cobain. This song should be top 5. It's not my favorite Nirvana song anymore.
No, but you know what it did. You know what it did.
It redefined the sound of music. It really changed so much. And it is highly influential. And
now, what is your favorite Nirvana song?
Dude, it changes with the mood. People ask me this a lot.
All Apologies.
All Apologies is such a great song.
All Apologies is a better song than Smells Like Teen Spirit. And like fucking In Bloom is better than Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah, I love the drums on In Bloom.
Come As You Are is better than.
Come As You Are, by the way, next time you're in your car, play that shit loud as fuck and you'll thank me. Because I listened to that song for the first time in a while, like not that long ago, a few months ago. And I played it loud. And then that bum, 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 bum. Like when it gets to that part, goosebumps. Lithium is a better song than Smells Like Teen Spirit. Lithium might be my favorite Nirvana song. I love a lot of off of In Utero. Dumb is an amazing track. Serve the Servants is really cool. What else?
You want to play something? Play Territorial Pissings loud in your car.
Territorial Pissings. I've never been a big fan of the first 10 seconds because it's the bassist Chris Novoselic being all silly, singing like, "Come on, people now," like But if you start that song at 10 seconds in, it fucking plays hard. And seeing that documentary at ArcLight and the big movie theater sound system was like goosebumps, because the documentary montage of Heck, that's also on HBO. If you have HBO Max, you could watch it.
You saw that in the ArcLight Dome?
Yeah, I saw it opening day because it only premiered in theaters in LA, New York, and Seattle. And I went with Gareth Reynolds, and then I went another time with Joe Kilgallon. I saw it twice opening weekend.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I should have went with you, man, because you're like, when I think of my biggest Nirvana fan friends, it's you, Reynolds, and Joe Kilgallon. My buddy Michael Pecco.
Good company.
Very good company. All right. Number 4, Bob Dylan, Like a Rolling Stone.
Yeah. They always have to have Bob Dylan on every list, like top 2, 3, 4. Bob is, I mean, the restaurant, the magazine is named after it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I like this song. Is this Bob Dylan's best song though?
Times are changing.
That's a good one.
I like the band's version of When I Paint My Masterpiece.
Yeah, I look. Bob Dylan obviously is a great
The Hurricane.
The Hurricane, I think I like the best by Bob Dylan.
The 25-minute song about the Kennedy assassination.
You ever think to yourself, his son Jacob Dylan has a 10
One
times
headlight.
better voice?
Yeah. Well,
you could have Bob's songwriting with his son's voice.
There's auto-tune, you know.
Was they doing auto-tune in the mid-90s? Probably.
Yeah, but T-Pain's the first guy to fucking put it on those dumb settings. It was always subtle. Like, they made it real subtle. Like, if you're off pitch or if you're off key, whatever, they would go tick, tick, and they would just fix it. He was the first person to make it, like, it's in the Netflix documentary. I don't know what I'm talking about.
So T-Pain did it with that over-the-top voice sound.
When you think of auto-tune, you're thinking of T-Pain, who's like, I want something to differentiate how my voice sounds. So he took existing software and cranked the fuck out of the vocal thing to make it sound like robotic like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew they did subtle auto-tune with certain things, but I don't know. I thought I heard a live version of one of
maybe he does. Maybe he does. I mean, that One Headlight song is a banger.
But
if that was like number 3, I'd be like, I don't know.
No, I would never have it that high. But my point is that, like, I just think about Bob Dylan as a songwriter because his voice is good for his songs, but it's just not a very strong voice. Where I think
everybody was in agreement that it was a bad voice, and like that's what Jimi Hendrix was like. Oh, I can sing my own shit.
Yeah, if that guy can. But it works. Some voices, though, just work for the song and work for what it is. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm okay with it.
A lot of punk songs, the guy can't sing for shit.
Yeah, I mean, Jimi Hendrix even. Was it Jimi Hendrix who said rock and roll ain't supposed to sound pretty? I liked Hendrix's voice, though. I thought it had a cool, I don't know if it's technically sound or whatever, but I know when I hear it, I like what I'm hearing.
Man, when I watched that Mets thing yesterday. I'm going to watch the rest of it after we're done here. And when they played Voodoo Child over the footage of the '69 World Series, that's boner city for me.
That is one of my favorite opening riffs for any song.
Yeah, Hogan. That's the Hulk Hogan entrance.
Hulk Hogan coming out.
That's his third classic entrance after Eye of the Tiger, Real American, Voodoo Child.
All right, let's close out strong here. Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come.
Wonderful song. Best voice of all time.
Yeah, he's up there. It is a very
up there. He's got the greatest voice ever.
Is it the greatest voice of all time? I mean, I'm not going to say yes definitively one way or another, but it is a great voice. You're right. I don't know. I got to really think.
Mike Burns turned me on to Bring It All Home to Me, the live version from something. It's like he could be singing for Van Halen, for an R&B group, or he could be at church, and it fits with each thing. He's so fucking good. He's got the greatest singing voice of all time.
All right, I'll take your word for it because I haven't heard the live thing you heard, but I know I like his voice. I'm just, whenever I hear someone say this is the best ever, I always have to be like, is it? But you're probably right.
I know who number one is, and she can fucking sing too. But male vocal.
Yes, male vocal. Okay, Public Enemy, Fight the Power. This has got to be for influential purposes, right?
Way too high. What is
way too high? Is this the 500 most influential songs or the 500 greatest?
Because it's like,
did I read the freaking list wrong?
No. I read the same thing that you did. Greatest.
It's greatest songs, right?
In Public Enemy, they were great, but it's like, isn't Nothing But a G Thing a more influential song, or isn't In the Club by 50 Cent a better song?
Of course, way fucking better.
Isn't Stan by Eminem a better song? When we all say Stan, I stand for that now.
Yeah, I mean, it created a slang word, but dude, I mean, yeah, I think this has got to be for influential reasons. It's got to be because it was one of the first big rap hit songs, right?
Or it's also like a protest song, and it like, fight the power. I mean,
well, it
Elvis
took inspiration. It started
most, but he never meant shit to me. He's straight up racist. This sucker was simple and plain, motherfucking man, John Wayne.
Dude, you know this song, man. But yeah, it's got to be for influential reasons. And number one is I love this song. I didn't know who wrote it though. The song is Aretha Franklin, Respect. Do you know who wrote this song?
Otis Redding?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so I rented Respect, the Jennifer Hudson movie, and they show them making that. It's so fucking awesome. And that album, I think it's called like I've Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. That whole album is fucking incredible.
Yeah, her voice is dynamite. She really had some pipes.
So she really had some pipes.
Yeah, so Otis Redding wrote it, but it is an Aretha Franklin song. This was like a little argument I got into with some people not that long ago about whose song it is. Is it the writers or the singers? And I'm like, well, I mean, I think it's the singer.
Joe Cocker and Ringo. Whose song is that? That's Joe Cocker's fucking song.
I think it's tough though, because Otis Redding doesn't have a published version of that I know of. There might be a demo of him somewhere doing it.
No. It was a song. You can hear that song.
Does Otis Redding have a version of it on an album?
Yeah, it's like "I Will Always Love You" is a Dolly Parton song, or
yeah, but she didn't. Well, no, that's different though. Dolly Parton. There's a version of Dolly Parton that published it.
Okay, well,
my point is like
in the movie, it's on the radio and they're singing it in the house. And then she makes it her own by spelling the shit. Like, he didn't spell it.
Okay, well, I didn't know. That's my question, because, like, God, I want to give a good example of this. There are some songwriters who write a song, someone else then uses it. It's a song for them, and they're the songwriter. They get like writing royalties, but they don't have a version of that song published anywhere.
Crazy is a Willie Nelson song he gave to Patsy Cline.
Yes, but is there and I'm not counting.
Prince wrote Nothing Compares to You. Sinead O'Connor made it famous.
Yeah, he wrote it and was the only version of Nothing Compares to You that is out there is from a Prince demo. Like, he never wrote it where it's like, this is gonna be a Prince song and she's just covering it. No, he wrote it to give it to someone, and Sinead O'Connor got it. That's like my point. There's a difference there.
Okay, so you have to go back earlier, and when people did standards, like there's in the 40s, when in the big band era, when there was like songs like it, whenever Bing Crosby did it, that became like the version. Let's say, you know what I mean?
I see. Yeah. Well, because there's a difference between. It's A Little Help from My Friends is a Beatles song that Joe Cocker covered, but did a better version of it. It becomes a Joe Cocker song. David Bowie did A Man Who Sold the World, but Nirvana's version is better. So it's like a Nirvana song. That I'm 100% in agreement with you there. But there are some singer-songwriters who write a song, like Britney Spears didn't write Toxic, but it's a Britney Spears song. It was my point. I didn't know that Otis Redding had his own version of it. I didn't know she was covering Otis Redding. Or
but you weren't alive. You weren't alive in 1964 to know.
Yeah, I was asking. I didn't know if Otis Redding wrote a song for his friend, or if he had the song and then she's like, "Oh, hey, can I cover that song, Otis?" You know what I mean? There's a difference. Is all I'm asking.
I think she just put it out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It sounds good. It sounds good, right?
But she's
I think I'm jealous of musicians. They get to do show. I can't cover a Brido joke. It's not fair. Yeah. But anyway, that list is pretty shit. I don't think that's. I mean, I really feel like. 20 through 11 was better than 10 through 1.
No Oasis songs.
I love Oasis, but I'm sure they got. I bet Wonderwall's top 100. And that's not even my favorite Oasis song. That's not even close to my favorite Oasis song. It's not even their best song.
What's your favorite song
by Oasis?
What's your favorite song?
Oh, ever? Shit.
Joe Kilgallon gets to write this list. Are you putting My Life by Billy Joel on there? Are you putting what do you put him on there? Like greatest.
There'll be a couple Billy Joel tracks on there for sure.
I know you like Billy Joel.
I like Billy Joel. There'll be a lot of Nirvana on there. There'll be some White Stripes. There'll be a lot of Beatles. I was thinking about this recently. Someone asked like 4 favorite bands. I go, yeah, my 4 favorite bands, like rock and roll bands. Nirvana, Beatles. No particular order. Nirvana, Beatles, White Stripes, Oasis. But then I also like, like Metallica. I like Appetite for Destruction is one of the greatest albums of all time. I like some Pearl Jam stuff. I like, there's probably so many bands I'm just completely blanking on right now. I was listening to Nine Inch Nails' first album recently. How ahead of its time was that album? So good. Yeah. Pretty Hate Machine. It's such a good album.
Head Like a Hole? Is that on that one?
Yep. That was the big hit off that one. That came out in 1989, that song.
Down in It?
Down in It, yeah. I was at the bottom. Dun, dun,
what is he
down,
saying?
down in it. I don't know. I don't even know half the words, but I think he was saying like,
when I was a kid, I thought he said I was at the party house, and now I can't get that out of my head because he sounds like he's like going, I was at the party house, and like that's what I thought he was saying when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as rap goes, I think Kanye. I love Jay-Z, Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nas.
Yeah,
there's some good stuff there.
the soundtrack to the musical Hamilton.
I've not heard that, but I'm sure it's wonderful. What other 90s bands are there? Smashing Pumpkins. I was a big Pumpkins fan.
They have a great version of Landslide also.
They do. Dude, their first few albums were phenomenal. Gish, Siamese Dream, Melancholy. Those were the
Cherub
first
Rock.
three.
I'll throw on Cherub Rock every now and again.
Disarm. It's got like a bell in it.
My favorite song of all time is Get By Talib Kweli. If you have time, it was Kanye West producing it, trying to make his own version, he says, of Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. He's like, he wanted an anthem, and he thought like Talib Kweli was the best rapper. So he was going to give him his Bon Jovi song. And it's wrong, but you know what? Sometimes when somebody that talented gets something wrong, sometimes Led Zeppelin wants to play the blues, and they're like, but they are just dorks who like Lord of the Rings, and what they ended up doing was fucking way better than whatever they were probably trying to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, Zeppelin's a great all-time band.
Yeah.
It was heartbroken when I found out that they stole the whole album. Plenty of people are inspired by.
Sucks.
Everyone's inspired by. Anyone who's ever done anything in the history was inspired by someone who came before them. But to literally just lift entire tracks word for word and note for note.
Sucky.
It sucks to find that out.
When they show you that, like, I mean, Jimmy Page could still fucking rip though.
Oh no, he's amazingly talented. They're all session
Bonham.
musicians too. They're like a super band. John Bonham's one of the greatest drummers of all time. No, they're incredible. What other great bands there's so many bands from the 70s and the Stooges I was a fan of. I got their first 2 albums on vinyl. Pixies, they're 80s. I don't know why I jumped a whole decade.
I saw Where's My Mind was like in the 400s, and I was like, that song fucking rules. Like if you like, so sometimes like the 400s, you're like, huh.
I gotta find. I'll come up with the definitive. This is my favorite song of all time, but I don't know. A lot of like I used to say, "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Do you know why? Because that was the first song that introduced me to music that wasn't this music I heard from my dad in the car.
Really?
So that opened my world. Or before that, no, that's not true. I got into Nirvana in like 1996, 95, 96. It was after Kurt died. My best friend, his sister was like obsessed with that whole era of music. And then he played it on CD for me. And I remember being like, what the fuck is this? Like that song just opened so strong. And the only other music I knew before that was, the Beatles and anything that was played in the car with my dad, which was like 60s and 70s music. Yeah. And then my babysitters played like Salt and Pepper and SWV or SWV. Yeah, Sisters with Voices. I thought I said SVU. In my brain, I said SVU, which is Law and Order. But like In Vogue, you know what I mean? They that's what my babysitters listened to, like the early 90s R&B, hip hop, not hip hop, it's more R&B. And then some rap like Dre and Snoop I heard through my babysitters. But the first like music where I'm like
pretty cool babysitters.
Yeah, they're mainstream. They play I Like to Move It. I like to move it. Well, that was a big hit at the time.
But SWV, they sang that like, I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak, I lose all control. And it's, that one? That should be up there.
You know what? Let's find out where SWV is on this one. But dude, thanks for helping me break down the list. It's always fun to talk to Mike Bridenstine.
Of course.
I do end the podcast doing 5 good ones, in which I ask 5 questions. So you ready for this shit?
Yeah, man. You switch up your endings on me.
I used to do.
Let me say to you,
fuck, marry, kill.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Me and probably your listeners, definitely your listeners, but I just want to say personally, I'm happy you're back.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for being the second guest back. I appreciate it, man. And
you are one of my most major influences when I decided to do my own thing.
Well, thanks, Brido. I appreciate that. Yeah, I never stopped doing the podcast for those listening when I took most of August off. I think I did one episode in August. It was just, I kind of gave an explanation on the podcast to everyone, but just for you, my friend Brido, to hear directly from me, I have a problem where I say yes to so many things, and I kind of tend to bite off more than I could chew at times because I always believe that I can manage it all and get it all done. And then when you do that, you tend to run into a brick wall. But I think that's okay for that to happen, because then you get to step back and then reset and then go, you know what? Here's what I really need to focus on, and everything else, you know, sometimes you got to cut the fat off that steak, you know?
Well, I don't really appreciate how you can just step away from it and come back and be naturally better than I'll ever be if I work my hardest for the rest of my life. I don't appreciate that, but I am happy that you're back, and I think that you're very good at this.
All right, dude. Thank you for the kind words. I don't know if they're true words, but I appreciate them nevertheless. Or is it nonetheless? I don't know. I dropped out of college. Here we go. 5 good ones with the host of Hunk with Mike Bridenstine. Mike Bridenstine. Question number 1. What has been your favorite moment in your comedy career?
Right now.
Right now? Or was it Tom Segura helping blow you up a little bit on Instagram?
I think, man, okay, so
you got some good ones, man. I know it's a tough loaded question too.
I think the
Eric
phone
Andre
call,
show?
The phone call when I got New Faces. I think.
Oh, you got Montreal's Just for Laughs Comedy Festival? That's a great phone call.
I think because that was the thing that I wanted the most. I really fucking wanted it, and I got the phone call, and that was like, at that moment in time, I thought, this is it. You know, this is like the other stuff. Like, I'm probably jaded, and I don't appreciate stuff as much, and I have to like look back at how cool, like some of the stuff you named. Like, of course, like I'm gonna look back and be like, I took that for granted, or like whatever. But also like, I mean, fuck, being a Chicago comedian is, to me, being like one of those guys is probably, I wear that with more of a badge of honor than anything I've ever done.
That's awesome. It's a cool
thing, man.
I
fucking mean that shit. Like, I look at that group of dudes and women.
Women can be dudes.
Right. I just didn't want to.
I know you wanted to clarify. I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah. And think like, I can't even fucking believe that I was a part of that.
Yeah, it's a special crew of people, man, you came up with. Question number 2. You're on death row. What's your last meal?
I think I went barbecue. But, man, have you had these fucking birria tacos? I know that Chicago can't do Mexican food for shit. But, man.
We've got great Mexican food. LA's Mexican food, I'll admit, is better. San Diego's Mexican food is probably the best. But Chicago's pretty good, man. You don't think you've been too spoiled?
If someone's like, you're dying tomorrow, you get Pequod's pizza, I'm not going to complain.
Definitely. All right. So what type of tacos was it? I missed that part.
Birria. I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm probably whiting it up, being white. But yeah.
All right.
I look like I storm. Oh man. Okay. So it's stewed beef that and someone's going to be like, it's goat. I like the beef, because I'm a fucking gringo. And so, you know, it's stewed beef. You put it, it's like juicy as fuck, man. And you can buy the consomme and dip that shit. And they sell the consomme and make, man, I got to send you some links of shit. But like, it's a thing people have heard of. It's not like a new thing that was invented. It's just having like an Instagram moment. And my dumb white ass had never heard of it. And then tried it. And I, honest to God, grew up with like Taco Bell and like Carlos O'Kelly's or whatever the equivalent of like the white people Mexican food, like chimichangas. So I didn't really like the shit, you know, until I had this. And then this was like the first thing that I was like, holy fuck, I love this.
Mexican food is phenomenal. I go back and forth on what my favorite like food is. And Mexican is always near the top of the list. It really depends on my mood, I suppose, though, but it's phenomenal. All right, number 3, favorite Disney movie of all time.
Not a Disney guy.
There's got to be one though that made a million fucking things.
Sure. Favorite Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. All right, it's technically a Disney movie. There you go. You could have said Avengers Endgame, I suppose, if you were going to go that way. I thought maybe you would have gone like back to childhood and said like, the Robin Hood where everyone was a bear or something like that. I don't know.
I never, for whatever reason, my mom was not like. I think that she said we couldn't go see. I don't even know. Maybe we just couldn't afford it. But never saw Disney movies growing up or anything. I am like one of those kids that just doesn't have any of those references. I don't think I've ever seen The Lion King.
It's pretty good, man. I was watching with my kid a lot, but I would skip the scene when Mufasa dies because I thought he was too young to process that. Because I'd watch him when he was like 2. I think I remember telling you this. I'm like, I'm his Mufasa. I don't want him seeing he die and him trying to kill his uncle, right? I don't want to throw that out there just as too little.
I feel like I remember Aladdin being really fucking good.
Aladdin was amazing. Robin Williams, he's great.
Yeah,
that was a really, really good movie. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you'll get into him later.
And is that she's like the hottest one too.
Jasmine might be the hottest Disney princess.
Pocahontas is pretty good though.
Pocahontas,
pretty hot.
She's pretty hot for some reason because of Trump. When I hear the word Pocahontas, I think, are you allowed to say that? Did you just say Pocahontas out loud? You're not allowed to say that.
You're talking about Elizabeth Warren, right?
That's her actual name, so you can say Pocahontas.
Her actual literal Pocahontas from the movie.
Ariel from Little Mermaid would be an all-time hottie, but then you think about that smell. Right?
Yeah, pretty fishy. Pretty scaly fishy. Yeah.
All right.
It smells that would smell like who's its and what's its galore.
Oh man, that's a good tune. So Disney references. What are you talking about? You're quoting a couple songs just now.
I don't know why I said that. I think I panicked and was like, I don't know anything. And then I was like, you think specific shit.
Yeah. All right. Well, number 4 is because we're talking a lot of music this one, so this question seemed fitting to me. If you could play in any band, what band and why?
Nirvana.
What instrument would you play?
Whatever Pat Smear plays, get him out of here. I don't know who he is. I don't know where he came from. All of a sudden he's in the band. I'm like, what? It's not you. It's Chris and Kurt and Dave. And who's this guy?
Yeah, they wanted to round out their sound because they were playing bigger arenas or bigger venues. So
I would be Pat Smear.
He was in a punk rock band called The Germs. And that's the band, that's the instrument, but why? Why Nirvana? What about Nirvana says I want to be in that band?
They were the first band that was mine. I felt like too young. So like I had older neighbors who were into Nine Inch Nails, who were into the Beastie Boys, who were into Alice in Chains. And I felt too young. The shit that I liked in elementary school was like Opposites Attract by Paula Abdul and like Wipeout by the Fat Boys and like Weird Al and shit. And all the kids like Guns N' Roses, and it was too old for me. I didn't get what they were talking about. She's my cherry pie, wink, wink. And I was like, I don't get it. It's probably about a vagina. I don't understand. But Nirvana was the first band that I was entering like 6th grade, and that shit came out, and all the older kids, all of their shit was completely rendered whack in one fucking Wipeout fucking track by this band where it was like everything that you've ever heard was cool is fucking over with.
Yeah.
And I got to be on the ground floor when I'm 12 years old and be like, I'm in middle school. I'm hitting puberty. My life is terrible. This shit is for me. And that was it. And that band was like, one time me and Dwyer were talking about it, Matt Dwyer, friend of ours, Matt Dwyer, how it was alpha music for beta males. And at that moment in my life, like, you're not an alpha male when you're fucking 12. So it felt like aggressive shit that didn't scare me in the way that like Metallica's Black Album did at the same exact year. Like that, like Sleep, whatever, Enter Sandman video was scary, man.
I guess for 12 really be scary. I got into Metallica, later in my teens, so it wasn't. That's a great tune. That's a great album, the Black Album.
Same year. 91 is
but different times. Like Nirvana, Nevermind came out, I think September 24th of 1991, and I think that Black Album was earlier, like maybe February or March. So yeah, it was. You're right.
In Iowa.
Nirvana just had a way of like, it's like someone said something that was an interview with Kurt Cobain, and they're like, "Do you think your generation's too apathetic?" And he's like, that was his answer. Was just like
That's
he
so
just did a
funny.
shrug, which he did. You knew he was doing it on purpose. And then
Yeah.
like I don't know, he just kind of had that I don't give a shit mentality. We're coming full circle with how much we love Norm Macdonald because he had a very much I don't give a fuck.
Oh yeah, that was
And
peak Gen X too, and
yes,
it felt very much like there's a new generation, and like metal was boomer, like like my dad liked Led Zeppelin, and all those guys in one way or another were just like kind of dick riding Led Zeppelin, even Guns N' Roses. I mean,
yeah,
all of you have singing a fucking falsetto like Robert Plant. Fuck off.
yeah. No, that's a good call. I didn't even think about that they were all trying to be Robert Plant. Holy shit. All right, final question. If you weren't a comedian, what profession would you be? And try to stay non-entertainment
Oh, I
if you
can't say
could.
just podcaster.
Yeah, sorry.
What would I be? I could be anything.
Yeah, anything. I mean, you could say like, I just wanted you to go non-comedy related because you're in the world of comedy. So what world would you be in if it wasn't comedy? I guess you could say,
Retired baseball player.
yeah, that's the dream job, right?
I mean, I think about that a lot. Now I know this can't possibly be my answer because it's like dumb of me, but I think about that a lot. Like the thing that I wanted the most when I was like in elementary school, I'd be retired by now, unless I'm older than Albert Pujols.
Wow.
So
Isn't it weird when you're older than the oldest baseball player? What a weird moment.
I'm younger than Tom Brady. I'm older than Albert Pujols.
I hope Tom Brady plays forever so we never top someone in a sport.
Yeah. So what would I do? I'd probably be in sales. That's what I did in Chicago. And who knows if I don't
Can I
get.
tell you what I see you doing? And I don't know if it's your cool background or whatever. For some reason, I see you opening up like a memorabilia type store, a type of store
Ooh,
like, remember that store Yesterday's? It was like a little shack on Addison by Wrigley Field that kind of
yeah.
sold all sorts of cool shit. I just see you being that guy because you seem to have an eye for something that's cool. Could I mention you can't mention the thing you were texting us about?
Oh, go ahead. What
The
is it?
painting?
Oh,
Brido's had a painting lying around his house that his wife was like, I just throw it away. And you were like, wait a minute. And it turns out it's worth a couple bucks. By a
yeah.
couple bucks, I mean more than that, by the
That
way. Go
was
on.
a crazy thing. Like, she got it kind of randomly from like a dude who's like, "Do you want this?" And she had it up in her bathroom. It wasn't even like displayed prominently like anywhere. It was just like framed in the bathroom. And then when we moved in February, and she had it in the Goodwill pile. And I was like, "What is this? Where was this?" And she's like, "In my bathroom." And I was like, "Oh." And I looked at the back of it, and it had an autograph on the back of it that I didn't know what it was, and it said 1964. And I was like, "What is this? Like maybe we can get, like you said, a couple bucks for it." And so I made out like an L and a M, and I looked up like modern artists, and I got a list until I found the guy, Lee Milliken, and I Googled where to see what art costs. Today was the auction. And is it bragging if I tell you what I got for it?
I didn't think you'd want to, but you can if you want to. Go for it, my man. I love a good reveal on a podcast.
More than $5.
How about it?
I mean, we're going to get, I believe that art is taxed at 32%, somebody told me today. And, there's going to be fees involved in it. Somebody also did touch up, but I will say, I laughed my fucking ass off when I saw what that thing went for. It wasn't like changed my life, but it's like I'm going to buy a couch.
Obviously, everyone went for more than $5. He was kidding around a little bit there, but that's amazing.
Yeah, I think a memorabilia store would be great. I don't know, I have right here, that's a Hank Aaron autograph. I bought a book that had all the baseball players' addresses, and I sent away for that. This here.
See, yeah, I just feel like I see
It's
you.
Andre Dawson's autograph.
That's really cool. I just see you running like a cool store like that for some reason. So I think that'd be a good thing for you, because even though you wouldn't, in this crazy hypothetical, you don't go into comedy, I still think you have that side of your brain where you're like, oh, I'm not working for this piece of shit the rest of my life either. You know,
I like art. I like a museum. Like if there was if I found out I could work at Cooperstown at the baseball, but like I saw a fucking video of them showing Derek Jeter shit today. Jeter looked bored as fuck. Like I would have been in there being like, oh my God, I can't believe you're letting me touch Joe DiMaggio's glove. Oh my God. Like that's what I would love more than anything to be.
Well, I got to bring you to this Club 400 because it's a Cubs museum. This man has a Cubs museum in his house.
Oh,
it's the most
in his
incredible
basement
thing ever. Yeah.
That's where
I showed you some
were?
pictures of it. Yeah, we're in the basement. It was voted like best man cave in America a couple of years ago by some magazine.
Oh my God! I think
he has the
saw...
event in his basement.
Oh my God! Yeah, my
former
buddy...
Cubs Ray Burris and Tim Stoddard were there as well.
Yeah, I recognize Ray Burris. So I didn't know that. But yeah, my friend Ben Becky goes there sometimes. That's incredible. I didn't know that's where I didn't put that together in my head.
Well, next baseball season, Brido, we talked about it this year, but we couldn't get the logistics down and didn't have enough time. Next summer, this is a little tease, everybody. Here's how we're going to end the podcast. Brido is going to he's going to fly from LA to Chicago. Me and him are going to do a show in Chicago. We're going to go to the Cubs game because he's been to Wrigley in a very long time.
That's true.
So we're going to go to a Cubs game. Then we're going to get in my ride and we're going to drive and do shows in Eastern Iowa and maybe like another city nearby. Maybe we'll do a little tri-state tour.
Can I record an album at CYSK?
Yeah.
If not, I'll do it at the Lodge. I don't give a shit. I just want
either one's a good choice.
Yeah.
I like the Lodge's new space so much, by the way. The Lincoln Lodge, everyone's comedy club in Chicago. They've got a new venue that they've been with for like maybe about a year now, but it was, with the pandemic, everything was
Why
closed,
did I ask you that on the air?
So good.
You can say no.
No, you can't. I got to talk to the people. I don't know why I said yes, like I could automatically make that decision.
Yes.
Talk to some people.
Yes, you can.
Sure, yeah. Because it sounded cool to say yes instantly.
Yeah. It's not a binding contract, of course, everybody.
All guests of the Joe Kilgallon podcast get to record their album at my venue I help run called Communities You Should Know, Timothy O'Toole's downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
All right, Brido, tell them where to find Hunk and where they could listen to all your other good shit.
Wherever you're listening to this, I would do a show called Hunk with Mike Bridenstine. Like Joe was saying, it's a panel of comics. We're talking about the news and do like other dumb shit. Joe does it a lot. I wish he did it more. He's been busy. There's also, I'm doing the Chicago Comedy History bonus shows on the Patreon. Joe is doing that tomorrow. I've done like almost 40 of those. I'm doing an oral history of the Chicago comedy scene from when the alt scene starts in 96 to about 2008. And I also do World Series reviews on my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Brido, Brido. Talk about baseball, talk about comedy, Chicago stuff. Hopefully fans of this show would like some of it.
I'm sure they'd like a lot of it because it's really good stuff, especially the history of Chicago stuff. You've had Kyle Kinane on, you've had Nick Vatterott on, you've had so many big names on.
Pete Holmes pretty soon. I'm dropping that one pretty soon.
Have you had Hannibal on yet?
I had him on my regular show, but not for one of these.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, some really big names there. Some of the best comedians in the world. Well, that's been the podcast, everybody. Thank you for listening to Joe Kilgallon Podcast. You can check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Joe Kilgallon. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps me. I love you guys. And as always, cheers